And then, my country's got no clean water or air, so I'll emigrate. Sneak my money away and live a quiet life. But what if everyone in China did this?
Environment protection departments should emphasize law enforcement. And they can't just rely on one or two operations here and there to deal with companies that break the law, but should enforce the law on a daily basis. They must build strong mechanisms to enforce environmental laws. They've got to be ready at any time to arrest those who don't abide by environmental laws and punish them.
Chongqing on the Yangtze River is Western China's industrial powerhouse.
The main pollutant being pumped out is sulfur dioxide. This comes from Chongqing's high sulfur coal. The coal used in our power stations hasn't had the sulfur taken out. Now the state is gradually introducing requirements for sulfur removal. But in order to cut costs, the power stations just emit the sulfur dioxide anyway.
The mountainous cost of cleaning up all this environmental damage would effectively cancel out China's remarkable growth rate of around 8% a year.
I
think it's reasonable to say that the loss to our economy caused by the environment is 15% of our GDP. I want all Chinese officials to understand the linkage between the economy and protecting the environment. Economic growth alone can't solve the increasingly serious problems of overpopulation, shortage of resources, and environmental pollution.
Human costs in China are not just about pollution, as the Three Gorges Dam shows. Its purpose is to generate electricity and control flooding on the Yangtze River. But there have long been serious concerns about its environmental impact and the plight of the 1 million people forced to relocate. At the National People's Congress in 1992, 2 delegates protested as only supporters of the dam were allowed to speak. With a third of the delegates abstaining or voting against the project, Professor Lei and others pushed through a key amendment, giving them the right to monitor the project and highlight problems.
I think this was an historic achievement. It provided the legal basis for people like me to carry out research in this area. Through this resolution, the state acknowledged that any problems discovered should be further investigated and solved accordingly. So, after taking part in the 1992 National People's Congress, I turned the focus of my scientific research towards the Three Gorges Dam reservoir area.
Almost every year since then, Professor Lei has made field trips into the area of the dam.
I'm an academic. I can't just trot out what other people say. I have to do research in person.
First stop is a tree planting scheme about 50 miles upstream of the dam. But even though the professor has won the right to ask straight questions about progress on the dam, he has no guarantee of straight answers.
县委外宣办的。哦，外宣办哦。那你们新进来的人没有人知道这个具体的这个？你比如说你这个地方，你这样面积有多少？哎，这个李一亩种了多少株？你有那个数据不？啊，个都没来。先没说我看那个，我们原来给你们传过去的就是我跟雷教授，我们给你传过去的就是要看库州路法吧，看库州路法这个我们传过去，你们后来又说回转来，不要这个内容了。没有啊，没有。
Professor Lay strikes out on his own to talk directly to the tree planters.
你们辛苦了。
不辛苦。
你们都是我们县城的吗？
The reason he's so interested in the tree planting is because after the valley is flooded, it'll be the trees that'll help stabilize the upper slopes. The professor finally gets the answer he wants. Professor Lay is followed down the hill by yet another propaganda department official. The Three Gorges Dam is a sensitive subject. As well as the world-famous gorges, whole cities, towns, villages and fertile farmland will be submerged for 400 miles. And how clean will all this water be? Xiong Tongfu, local director of propaganda, is adamant.
长江的水很清很清。对。我们的为了保护这个母亲河啊，我们云阳县对那个库州这个库区里面的那个环境啊，基本上做到了，就是老老小小都来保护环境，都来保护环境。
But Xinhua News Agency admits that the city of Chongqing alone tips over 1 billion tons of untreated waste into the Yangtze every year. Professor Lay now visits Yunyang, a new town being built for over 100,000 people whose homes are to be flooded by the Three Gorges Dam. Here, the propaganda officials agreed to stand back and let the locals talk freely. As in Ningxia, if your previous life was harsh, you welcome resettlement.
If we hadn't been moved because of the dam, we'd still be in our old town where things were a lot worse. We're quite happy now.
Since moving here, our living conditions have gotten a lot better.
It's like heaven.
We never thought we'd be able to move to a house like this. It's been good for us.
But 11 cities are being submerged. People have lost jobs as well as homes. Many farmers have been moved off land they've worked for generations. Modest compensation payments are soon spent, and what's a farmer to do in an apartment complex?
It's not enough for a person just to have a house to live in. How can they make a living? No job, no income. The housing is great. For peasants, they're mansions. But there's no safety net. They're slipping into poverty. People say they're beggars. Beggars living in mansions. That's what ordinary people say. It's a vivid image. And it lays bare the nature of the problem.
It's a long day for Professor Lay, but he's still curious to learn more about life after resettlement. He comes upon a group of people with new homes in Yunyang, but no jobs. They become increasingly relieved that someone is interested in their problems.